Hi, my name is Lynette, and I'm a Master Gardener for Genesee County Master Gardeners. And today I'm going to show you a little presentation of my garden at my house. And the theme is gardening in small spaces. As you can see from the pictures, I don't have very much space to garden in, but that doesn't stop me from planting what I want. There's a system to planting the things that you do want, and it can be done if you follow just some little rules, basic rules of gardening, soil conditions, root space, right plant in the right place. That's all essential. But if you just follow those few steps, you can plant anything, just about anything that you want. You do have to have some control and maintenance with your plants to keep them small for the space. But I will show you how I do that. And I have many, many, many plants that are huge. I've had to move stuff to another location after a while because it gets so big. But it doesn't stop me from gardening. And I do have, like I say, very small space, but I plant everything I want. This picture of it's a rambling rose on the side of my garage. And it's probably not the best place for it. However, it likes it there, so I've left it. I've trained it on a little trellis along the side of the garage. There's no space to do anything there except walk by it and hope you don't get pricked to death. But it's a beautiful rose, and it's worth having. I do keep it trimmed to fit the space, and the soil conditions are right. So it does love it there. I used to have a whole bunch of stuff planted there, but because I couldn't see it, I've moved a lot of stuff. But the rose stays there. It likes it there. This is the front of my house. There's about 5 feet between my house and the sidewalk. I've got all kinds of shrubs. The very center one is a Japanese maple. It was underplanted with some spireas and then some euphorbias. On each side of the Japanese maple, the burning bushes have grown, and that's just one space. That's in the middle of the house. To the left and to the right, there's more shrubs, Japanese maples and magnolia shrub. That's not a tree. But again, I have to keep them trimmed to the space. I don't use mulch in the ground because there's no room to put it. However, I do use a little fertilizer in the spring to perk things up. This is to the left side of those shrubs that I just showed you. This is a pinky winky hydrangea, and it was I'll just call it a blue Christmas tree.
Is that a juniper maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was gorgeous. The pink and the blue, and then the reds from the Japanese maple and the burning bushes. It was the color and the textures of that I was trying to achieve through structure and framework. Framework was very important to me. That's just my style of gardening. I like framework, and underneath, in between all the frames, and structures, I do pocket gardening in the ground for ground cover. And that way I get to have everything I want.
And I think too, Lynette, with your structure, then you have interest in the winter because you have shrubs and bushes giving you structure.
This is my north garden, I call it. There's about 10 feet between my house and the neighbor's house, and they've allowed me to take over that strip of land because I garden it. And it's Japanese maples and ferns and hostas, the 9-bark. I have moss ground cover. I have a stone pathway in there that's kind of underneath everything at this point. But again, the point is the pH of the soil, shade, watering requirements. These things all need the same thing. So this is how they mesh together. They look beautiful, the colors, the textures, and they all need the same requirements. So that's how I get by gardening in that tiny space.
And that's a good point to make. Your plants are compatible with your site.
Absolutely, very important. You don't want to put succulents in a place where you're going to have a lot of water, or plants that need dry areas in a place that's always wet. Part of my garden on the backside is that the drainage from eave troughs. I have certain plants there for that. I wouldn't put these plants where the eave troughs are because it would root rot. These are examples of my pocket gardens. In the front of my house, on the corner of the porch, or the driveway is to the left, as you see. My grandson and I built this little rock border all the way across the front of the house, and we planted 2 hostas on each side of this Japanese maple. The hostas were to create a pocket garden, of which over the years, hopefully we'll get some more plants to fill it in. To the very left is an iris, a flag iris, and she needs dry space as well. Too much water there will kill everything here. But this is the this is the southeast side of the house. It's hot, it's dry, it gets a morning sun and some afternoon sun. So it's a dry area, but these plants all work well there. This is my backyard facing the west. Some of these plants are okay there because it's the west side. I've created a shaded area on the west side of the house. Before any of these plants were there, it was open, it was bare, and everything got fried. So I put some Christmas trees there to create some shade. And this is the shaded end of the west side of my little garden in the back of the house. These plants, the ajuga and the hostas, they like the shade. It's a little bit damp back there, especially in the spring. That's where they say the cold lies the longest. It takes a little longer for the snow and the ice to melt back there, but they can tolerate it and they like it. I have some ferns that manage well in the summer after the snow is gone. I have bulbs back here that can tolerate that. But again, and these plants that you see here on the bottom are the pocket gardens. Some more layering of the garden for pocketing. The shrubs, there's a burning bush, and this is also a...
Is that a type of arborvitae?
It was another...
Chamaecyparis?
Yep, no, it was a hinoki cypress. It's a yellow hinoki, and that was planted underneath the magnolia. Then on the very ground was the yellow flowering
Creeping Jenny. Which
and
can
boy,
be
does she
invasive.
creep! I sit and rip it out sometimes by my hands, just rip it out, but she comes back like a trooper. And we have lamium in there that blossoms beautifully all summer long. And it just fills up that space underneath the shrubs. So you don't have to look at dirt or waste your, I don't want to say waste your money on
mulch.
Yeah. Because I don't want to waste my garden space with that. So I fill it up with plants.
And that's a good point. You can put ground covers in, or you can mulch, and they kind of do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. This is the back of my house again, where I have about 6 feet from the door to the fence. So the first foot you walk out into the outside onto the concrete walkway, and the rest of the area I have filled up with plants. This is also facing the west, but it can face the west because the trees I planted there to create the shade allows me now to have hostas and shade-loving plants. The rose on the fence loves the sun, so that does well there, but it also provides a little bit of shade for the euphorbias and the lamiums and the bulbs. So the bulbs are not getting bombarded with dry sun all summer, but yet there's enough moisture there to keep them happy, but not too much moisture because that'll rot the bulbs. So they're all in a little happy space there between the shade that I've provided and the amount of moisture from the winter. And this is the very, very corner of that west side that I provided shade for. Here I can have the ferns and the Lenten roses. I can have some coleuses. I think I put those right in the ground. But this little patch is only about 3 or 4 square feet. And in that 3 or 4 square feet, I have Jack in the Pulpit and some trilliums, the ferns again, and the Lenten rose. And then I fill in with the coleuses for color.
Yeah, I like that pop of pink or red in that. Looks nice.
This is my sweetheart of all my plants. I had to have this summer snowflake viburnum. I saw it on a garden show a long time ago, and I found it at a local greenhouse in Sick Bay. I paid full price for it. Anyways, and I brought it home. The tag said 3 by 3. So of course I put it right in the ground. It is kind of a shade-loving gal. I think the sun would probably fry it, but she was always supposed to be 3 by 3. So to the side of the house on the north is where she lives. She has grown so big as she produces the most gorgeous, gorgeous flowers in the spring. I just love her. She does well in that little tiny space. And I've read up on her a little bit, and it said that she likes sky room. So she doesn't need the elbow space room that a lot of viburnums need. She needs sky room, and that's what she gets in my little 5-foot area. She's a skyer. Underneath of her, I have a hydrangea or 2, and there's some lily of the valleys that do nicely there, and a little bit of roof irises. So that little tiny space does well, and that's my summer snowflake viburnum. I can have what I want in my little tiny spaces if you just start small and put the right plant in the right spot again, and just kind of keep your eye on the pH of the soil, and you'll be able to do that. You can have what you want.
And plant tags aren't always truthful, huh?
Absolutely.
Do some research.
You've just got to have morning glories. You have to. There is no dirt here. There is maybe 3, maybe 4 inch square of dirt that I found. This is my driveway facing the front porch. I found a little 3 or 4 inch spot that I could put some seeds in. And this is what I get from it. I think there's 2 packs of Heavenly Blue Morning Glories mixed with, I can't remember the other name of the white one, but they do very nicely there. And last year, I actually created a little garden on top of the concrete to help them out a little bit. And I put about 6 inches of soil on the concrete, and I hold it in with some bricks to create a little garden. And I spread some seeds in there now, and this is what I get from that. But there's actually no ground there. It's concrete underneath.
That's amazing. And I guess that tells you how tough morning glories are.
Well, determination.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have our containers hanging because we got to have those. The fuchsia hummingbirds love it. I love it. And it just goes well there. This is on the west side of the house, and it hangs from my trees because I've discovered that if you put it in full sun, it'll fry within about an hour.
Yeah.
But under the trees, it's a little hanging under planter, and it does well there. These are also the Heavenly Blue Morning Glories. These are in a container on each side of the drive in front of my garage door. I have a container on each side of the door, just sitting on the concrete. They get pretty hot there. They take a lot of water only in the evening. but they do like it there. So this is what I put there to fill up the space. Again, height.
So Lynette,
vertical
do you have
gardening.
a trellis or something there that they're climbing up? Do you have a trellis there?
I do have a little tiny trellis that helps them out, a narrow one, because I had a one that veered out like this, and it was interfering with the entrance into the garage. You were banging your head. So I found a straight and narrow trellis, and that's what I have back behind it, and tie it up a little bit to help it out. This is the northeast corner of my house. This is a Bloodgood Japanese maple, and growing in it is a clematis called Haldane. She's absolutely beautiful. White on the face, and in the back of the Haldane are purple stripes, striking gorgeous. And it grows up into the Bloodgood Japanese maple. And they live in about a ground space of a foot. So it's a lot of, it's not a lot of work. It's just getting it going. You have to start small with these plants. So there's not a lot of root competition. They grow together and they complement each other in the ground and above the ground.
Yeah, and clematis like their feet in the shade. So having them, plant
Yes.
under a shrub or tree and then have them grow up through the shrub. It's almost like the shrub blooming a second time.
The tree provides great shade, because they don't like their feet wet. Those clematises don't like their feet wet. So the tree does provide that shade, and the drainage for the clematis. And again, I don't water a lot there because it's already, it's on the north side of the house, and it's moist there. And this is a full-size view of it. And to the side of it, to the right, is spirea. And to the left is down the front of the house. Again, you can see the sidewalk between my house and the street. There's just that little space between my house and the sidewalk before you get to the street. A lot of filler in there, the lamiums, just a lot of shrub work, framework, and pocket gardens, all requiring the same thing. Behind my garage, I have a foot of space between the garage and the privacy fence that was there when I bought the house. However, I'm going to use that space. I have wisteria, Japanese wisteria, actually, and she just kind of loves it there. There's no room. But she takes up my foot of space along the back of the garage, and I let her have it because she's so gorgeous. However, it is a high maintenance plant. So be careful when you grow Japanese wisteria. As beautiful as it is high maintenance. Not so much in the ground. I've tried to kill it. You can't dig deep enough to kill it. It just keeps right on coming back because she loves me and I love her. So I let her come back every year after I whack it down to the ground. I have to keep it under control. It has grown into my garage. It has grown into my neighbor's garage, and it has taken over the fence. I've had to take an axe to its wood to get it untangled from all the neighbors. So, and the neighbors aren't real crazy about it because it kills their plants too. But I keep her under control for myself, and she is beautiful. She rewards me every year with her beautiful panicles.
So wisteria might not be the best choice for a small garden unless you're willing to work at it.
Yeah, you can have all those big things, but you just have to work at it. This is a long view of the side of my house, the north side, standing in the back from the west, looking east down the side of my north garden. I have a beautiful, beautiful rose called New Dawn. Again, she's quite aggressive. She likes to grow and wander, but she is so well worth it. Excuse me, her blooms in the spring are worth the work. And she's a big rose, but she also lives in about a foot of space in the back on this trellis. She is absolutely gorgeous. However, she does need a lot of trimming and a lot of care at times because it has grown over my house and the neighbor's house. But she is beautiful and it's worth it. And again, her requirements are compatible with other plants in that little space there that I have. I have some astilbe there and a couple of ferns that you can't see and a Japanese maple. They all require the same light and water requirements, and this is how they get along. And they all started out small roots. So,
yeah, and with your borrowed view, if your neighbor gardens or you have a tree, you can kind of frame your view so it looks down, so it makes your garden look longer or bigger.
Yes. It does a lot for that. It gives it depth, and this is a perfect example of the long view. This is the back of my house, the west side. And the very front of the picture is where I sit, and I look at the long view down the back of my house, which isn't that long. It's maybe 40 feet wide or long is all. But beyond the tree at the end of this path is my neighbor's house, and we've gardened all the way across her yard. So I use this as a borrowed view to my garden and make it look a little longer. The long view, I call it, in the back of the house. Along the path are pocket gardens. Again, structure and framework was very important to me. All these trees that you see, I have planted for shade and structure and framework. And I fill in underneath and in between. Each little pocket garden is a theme as well.
And I think it's great
to the right, you can see this Kenilworth ivy that is absolutely stunning when it's flowering. Even when it's not flowering, it just hangs on a brick planter that my brother and I created. We just stacked bricks, and in it I put a pot of Kenilworth ivy from Aaron. God bless his soul. And it's just goes where you can have that in that little tiny space.
And I think it's great that you garden with your neighbor.
Yes. My garden, another view from the street looking back from the opposite way, from the east looking back to the west. Where you see this little gold leaf bleeding heart at the bottom, this used to be the only place that there was grass. So my grandson and I decided to turn it into a garden space because he loves to garden. So we took up this, a few feet of grass, and we planted the bleeding heart, some perennial geraniums. We put a hosta in, and growing on the arbor is a sweet autumn clematis. And
another
to the
big
left
plant.
is that gorgeous Haldane clematis. That all kind of goes together, all requiring the same elements of water, sun. Right up against the sea, there's an acanthus, kind of a rare plant, but it gets these tall, spiky, beautiful spikes of flowers on them. The leaves of the flowers are not actually flowers, they're thorns, but they're pink and gorgeous. And this guy, he's just starting out, but he's, you can do it in that little tiny space. This is, again, looking from the street going back to the west side of the house, where there's a 9-bark, a blue Boy Hosta, my grandmother's fern, a Japanese maple, and my Viburnum. On the right is those orange ditch lilies and azaleas, and again a couple of hydrangeas along the way. Underneath all that is a path, actually, with rocks.
So you have to have a path to get through.
I don't water there very often.
And there's your path.
It takes care of itself. This whole area takes care of itself, really, when it comes to watering or anything. It just kind of takes care of itself. They all need, again, the same requirements. Water and light, pH. I keep the check on that, but they're pretty much they love each other.
That's a good way to put it. Oh, so question. So I do have a question for you, Lynette.
Oh,
Do you do much fertilizing or composting? I mean, you have a lot of plants packed into a small space. So, I mean, you would think they would run out of nutrients, or what do you do?
in the beginning, before I plant, I will turn the soil over, almost like a double digging.
Mhm.
And in that process, I will add some compost. I can't make my own, so it's store-bought compost, manure, and I'll add some old leaves if there's any, and I'll just turn it over and over until the soil it just crumbles in your hands. And then I plant and water well, and over by the end of summer, everything is settled in pretty much by itself. But in the beginning, I do the composting. I don't add liquid fertilizer or anything like that, no, because the nutrients from the compost in the beginning take care of that pretty well.
So once you have established plants, do you use compost in the spring? Do you compost over your beds?
I compost in the spring before stuff starts coming up. I'll give it a little tune up, a little freshen up with some fresh compost. In the fall, I don't clean the leaves out. I wait until spring till they're rotted. I'll either turn them over with some fresh compost and a little topsoil, not too much, but I clean out the rest of the leaves in the spring. But I let the nutrients from the leaves get all the nutrients from that. That's the best.
Yeah,
that's the best.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, so I think we just have a few more slides, and I think they're more. Here's the end. You have your puppy there.
Oh, he was my overseer, toothsayer, and seeksayer of my garden. My Rudy.
Yeah,
Rudy has left us.
Rudy has a view there,
but his memory lives on.
Yeah,
he was the overseer of everything. He was my buddy. I love him and I miss him.
All right. So, folks, if you have questions, you can always contact our Master Gardener office. We have Master Gardeners in the office Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. There's a number that you can call, or you can email them, and they are here year-round. And if you found this video, you found us on YouTube, but we also have a Facebook page.
Thank you very much for watching.
Or our website, and you can
enjoyed it.
You can go for current classes that we might have coming up on our website under events. And then thank you for participating and viewing. So thank you, Lynette, for taking the time to run us through your small garden. I think it's amazing how many plants you've got packed in that small garden.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, let me see if we can.
My pleasure.